Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minds of Culture podcast starts right now. Going on, guys? Yes. Had to take a break from the podcast for a little bit. Just because I had to make some assets, had to change stuff around, just some housekeeping. But we back, better than ever. And oh my goodness, you can still hear my night clicking. That makes me sad, but it's okay. I believe that muted me for a second. What stuff works. But regardless, I'm gone for a bit and then everything just pops off. Why? No idea. It's the weirdest thing ever. I mean, we have gas shortages, we got inflation, we got more printing of money. I mean, it just doesn't end with the craziness. So without further ado, let's get into this first story, which I really don't need to show anything for, but I was gonna bring this up. So this is from the AP, Associated Press, if you didn't know, but let's take a look. So AP, pipeline hack, fuels gas crunch, US is back, Russian origins. Now, Biden did say that he doesn't believe that it was the Russian government, but that the people who attacked live there. That's what he believes. And could be, maybe, I don't know. But as far as this story goes, the funny thing about it, it demonstrates exactly why green energy isn't ready yet. See, we have, the US government looking at to people like Greta Thunberg, however you say her last name, whatever. And people like AOC and the General Left Clause and people wanting the Green New Deal and all of the other crap. In practice, one pipeline caused a gas rush, caused shortages, which people were coming out claiming there weren't, but there were lines, all types of nonsense. But what did they say? Let's just move to green energy. We'll be fine. This is what happens. And it's not pretty. So again, let's just look at some of these numbers. 70% of North Carolina's gas comes from the gas stations were out of fuel. They like all their gas comes from this pipe. This pipe goes all along the East Coast, giving gas to everybody. So, and half the stations, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Washington, DC, everywhere along the East Coast was decimated by this. It's just like, come on, 45% of the gas on the East Coast came from here, but there were no gas line shortages, according to officials. There was a rush, so people bought a lot, and places were out, and we saw a lot of bags over gas pumps showing that obviously there's no gas in these. So they were out, there were many lines. So let's not act like there was nothing happening, because there was. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that and make one further point, is that on this energy stuff, we moved from whale oil to fossil fuels, not due to because the environment and we cared about the whales and we wanted to not to go out of extinction. That's all great. Like, we probably shouldn't, no, we fully shouldn't make it whales extinct. I'm glad we didn't. However, they weren't saved due to, I don't know, altruism, you could say. They weren't saved due to altruism. They were saved due to people finding a better source of power. And we didn't change until that source was found, understood, refined, and in full production. It didn't change for a while. So we can't force change. Change comes when it's ready. You can't make something ready that's not. If the technology isn't there, if the infrastructure isn't there, it doesn't work. We all love Teslas, but guess what? The electricity they use is generated by fossil fuels. So what are you gonna do? What you do is you set up a network, you make it so people can easily access the cars, and then once the technology is ready, you can then go ahead and change. Oh, excuse me. You can change it and use a more efficient source when an efficient source exists. That's what you can do. Shutdowns don't work. And seeing that Colonial Pipeline being shut down, the proof in the pudding. But yeah, we're gonna move on to our next story. I wanted to highlight this. Just, there's a couple tweets I wanted to highlight, but here's a funny one. President Biden, this is our moment to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the super wealthy and giant corporations. Let's get it done. I love that the first tweet is this nonsense. Look at that. $8 million. You gotta pay 90% of your income to taxes. 90%. You're insane. You're insane. But with that, we're not gonna focus on that irrational. I don't even know what to call them. You're just a rational incarnate. However, this moment to build an economy that works. If you want to do that, why not stop with the lockdowns everywhere so people can work? That's how an economy functions. It doesn't function by printing money. Printing money is how you devalue currency, and that goes towards, guess what? Tearing down an economy. Yes, Biden, maybe you will start to understand what your party does, what the entirety of the federal government does. Do this crap and do everything we're stuck in right now. What did he do when he first got in? Shut down the Keystone Pipe? I wonder how much that helped people, in the economy. Good paying jobs And of course, I can't say I can't say a last word because, of course, I'll get banned and blocked because I can't repeat the inane craziness that this man, spews out. But okay. But I just wanted to highlight that. So, but I do want to move to this tweet. The rule is now simple. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. The choice is yours. You know the funny thing? This is outside of this. Y'all have ever watched The Boondocks? The choice is yours is a very, very infamous phrase. I'm not gonna repeat it, though I have many times because it's so funny. But suffice to say, it's probably one of the best episodes of The Boondocks. I would highly recommend seeing it. It's really funny. All right, but back to this. All right, so I guess he hasn't heard of Texas and Florida. Like, does he not know that there's places that don't believe the same things he believes? Does he not know that the federal government does not have power over all of America, meaning over states, and states can decide different things? What a concept. Well, what he wants here is total obedience, and I'm not with it. I'm not with it. You see, why is this a or question? As if there weren't viruses, flus, and whatnot every year. So you're saying wear a mask until you do. So you're saying for the rest of my life, wear a mask unless I get vaccinated. You're out your mind. No. But I wanted to highlight this first because let's look at something pretty beautiful. This from the Blaze. Pro-mask social media melts down over updated CDC guidelines. Vows to wear a mask indefinitely, empowering anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. So, on Thursday, CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky announced that fully vaccinated Americans can return to life without masks. The directive was a full pivot from advice issued early in the month. Alrighty, so let's look at this. Dr. Jason Johnson will continue to wear a mask in closed buildings and restaurants, thank you. It's not an imposition on anyone else or doubting the CDC. It's just an added caution. Even Bill Maher, who was fully vaccinated, he tested positive for COVID. And even though HBO insisted he felt fine, he was forced to scrap the show. Or at least the scheduled taping, not the whole show. Dr. Lee, and a horrible individual. The CDC has gone from one extreme to another, from overcaution to throwing caution to the wind. By not requiring proof of vaccination, they're essentially eliminating mask mandates and physical distancing, which sounds great to me. This could de-incentivize vaccination. As you can see there, the purpose of this is to make sure we incentivize vaccination. So if anything at all threatens that, it's an issue. But there's one more tweet I want to show you. Those Scarborough, the CDC says it well as well. Probably a smart thing to do now, and a good idea to keep a mask on hand in the future if that person in the seat next to you starts the hacking and sneezing routine in the flu season. David Hogg, he's a gun control activist. I feel the need to continue wearing my mask outside, even though I'm fully vaccinated. Because the inconvenience of having to wear a mask is more than worth it to have people not think I'm a conservative. Haven't had a cold in 15 months, I'll be wearing a mask. I think you get the point. So, funny thing here is that from what we see with those stories, have we not been told for the past year and some change? I stopped counting the months because this is never going to end. It's not. Fauci's already come out talking about seasonal masks. So this was all a grooming and conditioning thing. But regardless, we were told to listen to the experts. If they say this, you gotta listen. You're anti-science. All of that nonsense. They come out with new guidelines. Oh, well, they said this, but I'm, by definition of not listening, doing something else. Not listening and do something else. Oh, I'm gonna keep wearing my mask. You notice that I don't have to. Nope, it's a good idea. The science now says it doesn't need to be done, but they still do it. What happened to listen to guidelines? What happened to do what the CDC says? They told us. What? Does it not work anymore? Do we just ignore it when it's against what you like? But now that they're coming out, oh, you don't need them anymore. Interesting how the turntables, I will always say it that way. Love Michael Scott. But I will always say, man, this was never about safety. These cultists in this weird mass club don't care any about that. It's all about virtue signaling, because when they're told they don't need it anymore, they latch onto it even harder. Ridiculous. Now, Biden made a comment on this, and I want to show you guys that. So, let you get a good look here.
CDC guidance this week about outdoor mask wearing. A lot of folks excited that they can now shed these masks if they've been double vaccinated. Are you going to be one of these folks now? We no longer going to see the President of the United States outside with a mask on?
Sure. I mean, but what I'm going to do, though, because the likelihood of my being able to be outside and people not come up to me is not very, very high. So it's like, look, you and I took our masks off when I came in because look at the distance we are. But if we were, in fact, sitting there talking to one another close, I'd have my mask on and I bet you'd have a mask, even though we've both been vaccinated. And so it's a small precaution to take that has a profound impact. It's a patriotic responsibility, for God's sake. It's making sure that your wife, your children, if in fact they haven't been vaccinated, making sure that they're not going to get sick.
Let's get that all the way off the screen. Sorry for the cringe. Again, if you cringe so hard, you had some type of muscle spasm, can't help you. But as you can see, with the science now saying something different than what they like, it's interesting how now we can just ignore them. President saying something different. Multiple celebrities and governors and woke leftists saying something different, but they're not anti-science apparently, because what the CDC says is the science, right? And what he just said goes against it. So he just said wearing a mask is a patriotic duty if you're vaccinated, even if you're vaccinated. However, CDC said scientifically it's okay not to. Interesting. So it's patriotic now to not listen to science. Okay. Just as long as I got that straight. Had to move the goalposts a couple times to make sure I understood. Gotcha. Last thing I want to take a look at in this one. This is going to be a shorter show, by the way. Just wanted to make sure everything on this one came through properly. Still some things I gotta change, but for the most part, it's worked out decently. But with that being said, we're going to move on to the giant news that is going on right now, which I probably should have titled this podcast, but it is what it is. Maybe I'll change the name. Maybe I'll add it. I don't know. We'll see. So, the Israeli versus Palestine conflict. Remember, this has been going on since 1948. We know there was missiles fired on Israeli people by Hassan. So there's another conflict. We've seen that Israel and the Palestinian territories this week, the bloodiest conflict in recent years. Israeli airstrikes killed more than 130 people, at least 1,000 injured in Gaza alone. This is in retaliation to Hamas. I always say that wrong. They fired dozens toward Tel Aviv, killed a lot of innocent civilians. That's how this has been going for a long time. The bad part about this is no longer about anything. I talked to one of my friends about this, and you get to a point in a fight. If you guys have ever read or watched One Piece, you know that, especially if you're past Fishman Island, you learn that the fishmen are fighting fighting and hate the celestial dragons in particular, but also humans to a minor extent because of what was done to them. And then you had better context for what Arlong did to Nami because of that. But getting back to this, This isn't about who started it. This isn't about any of that. It's about the fight. Obviously, it's the land question. Oh, it's my land. Oh, it's your land. You know, whose land really is it? Oh, you're getting pushed out. You're getting oppressed. Oh, standard of what happens. But honestly, let's say this. Let's say random fantasy hypothetical land. Even if, let's say, they took the entire territory, divided it in half, and said, you live there, we live there, put a wall up between us, no one crosses over. And let's say even one side takes blame of who started the conflict. So one side took ownership of the starting of the conflict, dating back to the 40s, and they divided it equally in half, 50-50. They would still start fighting. It would still fight later. There's so much bad blood, hate, animosity, confusion. If you watch some interviews of people there, a lot of them say, I don't know why we're fighting. And others say, my father fought, his father fought before him, his father fought before him. It's been going on forever. And it's not like these people had a great representation or relation to each other before the 40s. Like, it wasn't great before then either. So with this conflict, the question is, how do we prevent it in the future? How do we move in a direction that's peaceful, that changes the landscape, that will no longer have the issues that we have now, meaning civilian deaths? Because no one wants that. Everybody wants people to stop dying. However, it's just not realistic. It's not practical. They're not fighting for anything anymore. They're fighting for the sake of fighting. I'd love a solution, and I've thought about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And one of the solutions that is awful, but one that me and a couple of people came to, is unfortunately, with the way these two groups feel about each other, the solution may be mutually assured destruction. Both sides having enough artillery to take out the other. That sucks, and I wouldn't want it to be that way. But it seems like unless they would both lose everything, they wouldn't stop fighting. They just wouldn't. It doesn't seem that way at all. I would hate that to be the case. I don't want it to be the case. But even if you divvied up everything perfectly in the middle for the land, they'd still fight. Unfortunately, I think the most peaceful thing would be mutually assured destruction and an eternal Cold War, because they know neither can hit the button unless they want the other side to hit the button. And it's sad. I wish it wouldn't come to that. I wish there was some other solution, at least I could think of. But I don't see anything that stops them from start fighting again. It'll always restart. It'll ebb and flow, but it'll always be bloody again. And that is that. With that, guys, that's about all I wanted to talk about today. Just wanted to grease the wheels a bit, get back to the podcast, test out some of the new stuff I made, see what that sounds and look like. Got some more testing to do, but so far good. But with that, that's gonna be it. Thanks for checking this one out.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Minds of Culture podcast. Don't forget to tune into the live show every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Siyintax YouTube channel. That's Siyintax. Have a good one.